let's do this. Let me just chug this so I can come to life.
Why the hell did I agree to this today? Do you want another one? That's it.
It was like a 2-second stop. I was like thinking about it.
That already tells. So you don't drink coffee every day?
Not every day.
I kind of like the ritual of it, just like getting to my office, having a cup of coffee, and I probably have 2 or 3 cups a day.
Oh, okay. I used to be so bad, like when I was working and going to school, but like 5 coffee.
Yeah, I really understand.
It's crazy.
But me, like, I don't know, I got here in the morning and then I finished like 1.
Yeah.
Every day is too long, so coffee keeps me.
Oh, I get that. Every day is too long, especially when things go wrong.
How's it going, guys? I got my good friend Heidi back to talk more about visas, business formation, and today we're going to talk about something that people have often reached out to me called the one-person corporation, or OPC. It's how I have started Purple Cow, my company over here in the Philippines that I own 100%. Heidi, great to have you back.
Hello, I'm glad to be back.
Great. So I know C&G Consulting, your business focuses a lot on visas, and we've had you on the channel talking about that before, but also you guys do different types of business formation.
Yes, so we do all business formations from OPC, corporations, partnerships. So anything that basically relates to that, we actually provide those services to.
So can you explain more, what's a one-person corporation or OPC in the Philippines?
So a one-person corporation is actually like getting the best of both worlds from having a sole proprietorship and a corporation. So the OPC functions as a sole proprietorship, meaning there's like one sole owner, but there is limited liability, basically like a corporation, where your liability it only extends to the percentage that you have on the business, right? So it also protects you and keeps the business as a separate entity from yourself, which is not like a sole proprietorship where the liability is to the sole proprietor. And, you know, as a foreigner, I think that's important. Always with expats that we have here, they always ask, oh, how can we own our business 100%? Because if it's a corporation, there's such a big capitalization that sometimes foreigners are like, oh my God, we're just a startup. How do I bring this much money to the Philippines, right? So an OPC is a great alternative for that, because a lot of the foreigners here try to do domestic corporation, where they only own like 40% of the business and then 60% Filipino, which kind of gives you a little bit of uneasiness, right? Because as a person coming here to start business, you would want your corporation to be 100% owned by you.
Absolutely. Right? So these days I still have sometimes people say, you know, come on, you can't own a business 100% in the Philippines. And until I think March of 2019, that was the case, you know, where I think a lot of foreigners had partners that were more or less, sometimes not at all, involved in the business.
Yeah.
And it's really great that the Philippines has opened up, you know, this OPC so foreigners could own a business 100%. But when it comes to the OPC, can a foreigner own any type of business as an OPC, or are there some restrictions?
There are some limitations, of course, and you have to check into the foreign negative list. So the foreign negative list basically tells you what are businesses that foreigners can engage in. So it's a lot. So just look up foreign negative list in the Philippines, and you will find there the limitations of what businesses can foreigners have here in the Philippines.
So is it either a foreigner owns a business 100% or 40%? It's kind of no in between.
It's like a gray line, right? You can actually own the business 100% if you have an OPC. But with an OPC, you need to have 2 nominees. So one nominee and one alternate nominee. These nominees are basically the ones that will take over in case something bad happens to you.
All right. I hope you're not trying to tell me something here.
No. That's why I wasn't trying to look at you.
All right, so the other foreigners watching, no, not you guys either. These nominees, obviously they don't own any of the business,
No.
at least as long as, the 100% owner is still alive and kicking.
Yes.
But if anything did happen, this would kind of be like the succession plan,
Yeah.
I suppose,
Yeah.
of what would happen next.
Yeah, since you're the only owner, unlike the corporations, right, where there's other owners that can actually like take over the business. OPC, having those alternate nominees actually secures your business, even if, God forbid, the owner of the OPC is no longer with us.
Right, right. So would the only reason that a foreigner would consider an OPC over, more of a traditional corporation over here be because of the ownership side? Or with the other types of corporations, is there any other advantage over an OPC?
With the other corporations, I think you can make it domestic, right? Because some of the foreigners actually come here and want to deal with things that they can do with, like, for example, owning a property, which domestic corporation can actually like buy properties in the Philippines. It's easier also to share your shares and stocks with a regular corporation. For an OPC, it's a bit difficult, right? For a corporation, it's a lot easier because you just need to transfer the sales through a deed of assignment, and that's it.
Speaking of land ownership, foreigners can't own land in the Philippines. And sometimes people, have asked me, well, if I get an OPC, can my OPC then own land? And what would you say to them?
No, since your business is considered 100% foreign owned. So you have to keep your corporation domestic for you to be able to engage in that.
So if it was a domestic corporation where the foreigner owned 40% and Filipinos own 60%, how does that work? Still, foreigner can't own land at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, well, the foreigner doesn't really own the land. It's the foreigner's company that owns the land. So that's how it works. Because still, your company is basically majority Filipino, and that's the limitation. It has to be only Filipinos can own land in the Philippines, right? So because of that majority, it's possible, but on paper you only own like 40% of that, but you are not allowed to sell it unless you do it through the corporation that you have.
Right. So though people might want to try to kind of be tricky, I think it just doesn't work that way. Foreigners themselves can't own land, whether it's personal or through a business. Hoping that will change one day. Come on, Philippines, help a foreigner out. And for me, that's even why on a personal level, why I bought a condo instead of a house.
Yeah, exactly.
I could own the condo 100%. I can't own a house. I mean, I could own the physical structure, but not the land.
Yeah.
So a condo is just so much more
Easier.
straightforward
exactly.
for a foreigner.
Exactly. But there's also a 60-40 thing with owning condos. Like condo corporations or managements can only own like 40%. So there only has to be 40% of foreign ownership in a single condominium.
Right.
Yeah.
That's very interesting as well. So definitely a lot of restrictions for foreigners. I'm sure the government has good reasons for that, but definitely important for foreigners to be aware of the limitations.
Yes.
Absolutely.
If you want foreigners to own 100% of the land, that's going to be a long battle because it's actually in our constitution that only Filipinos can own land. So
sure,
maybe it'll happen, but it'll probably happen in like, I don't know, a decade. It's going to be very long.
Yeah. It's understandable. And I'm sure that it really, protects locals here as well. However, with business formation, I'm really glad that one changed because I think it was very complicated in the past. To me, at least from an outsider, it would appear that often foreigners would invest 100% into the business, and it kind of felt like sometimes things were done in name only, with the 60% partners,
Filipinos,
and that's just very complicated.
Yeah.
So it's good to have this structure for foreigners to be able to invest here as well.
Exactly.
So you mentioned liability. What does that look like practically? If somebody were to sue an OPC, how do those type of things work?
So basically, if something happens, the liability in your corporation, it only applies to the corporation, since you and the corporation are separate entities. You being a separate entity and the corporation being a juridical entity. So any cases would be to the corporation and not to yourself specifically. Yeah.
All right, that's good. Not that I want to get sued over here or
yeah.
anything. So tell us more. Say somebody's watching this video and they say, Heidi, I want to reach out to you about how to get help starting an OPC. What does that look like practically for somebody?
Starting a corporation here in the Philippines is fairly easy as long as you know the ropes of like SEC and registration. So the normal question I normally get asked is, what do I need to give you to start this? So you just need a tax identification number and your passport, and we will ask a bunch of information like your address, your full name, your birthday actually is asked in the business registration. That's about it. And then we do everything else. So we lodge it with SPARC, SEC's SPARC in online basically. And then that's when the drafting happens. So once you file it with SEC, they will review all the information that you gave us, we gave them. And then once that's reviewed, they will most likely have corrections. So it's a lot of back and forth. Once it's approved, you will be directed to payment. So the great thing of now, because you pay online, like you don't have to go to like SEC. Before it was so manual. The corrections would be go to SEC office, come back, go again. Now it's online, so it's a lot easier. But you do need to go one time to submit like your notarized and signed documents so that you can get the hard copy of your SEC registration.
Okay.
Yeah.
So does that mean that a foreigner would have to at least one time physically be in the Philippines to be able to start it?
Not really. If you have someone that can send those documents to SEC, then you're good.
Okay.
But at least with signing the papers, because notarization here in the Philippines means that you have to be in front of a lawyer for him to notarize your documents. So at least that you have to be here to do that. Yeah,
Okay.
so just to keep things legitimate.
Okay. So Heidi said that it's pretty easy to start an OPC. Don't tell her I said so, but she's a little crazy. So for us, when we went through this process, it was, in 2019, like April, we started. So it was literally the month after it was available here. The banks didn't even know what an OPC was, and it was not easy at all.
Yeah.
So I imagine now it has got easier because it's been around for 4 years or so now. But I think that the thing is that there's so much back and forth. It probably took us quite a few months, and I imagine that would be shorter now as well because everybody's more used to an OPC compared to then. But it's a lot of work to do it.
It is a lot of work.
Definitely, we would have got in touch with you if we could kind of take a time machine back in time. I think that for me, starting businesses in the U.S., I do it online. It takes 15 minutes. It's so simple. But here, there's really a lot of back and forth.
Yeah. I really want to say sana all on being able to start a business in 15 minutes. Here it takes at least 2 to 3 months. If you're lucky, 1 to 2 months, right?
Yes, and a lot of back and forth.
A lot of back and forth. So that's why you need to hire an agency so you don't have to deal with the back and forth.
Yes, not biased, but yes,
sorry,
of course, people should get in touch with you.
Yeah.
And guys, I put the link to Heidi's business in the description below. Definitely, I'd recommend getting in touch with her. Otherwise, your hair might look like mine by the end of the business formation process. So what about investments? For corporations in the U.S., there's option for people to buy shares and, different things like that. Are there any options for that in the Philippines with the OPC?
For the OPC, since it's a singular owner, it would be difficult to actually buy and give shares. So if in the future you're planning to expand and you actually want to sell shares from your company, I would recommend you'd rather do a corporation than having an OPC.
So lots of very helpful information. Anything else that you would say to anybody considering starting a corporation here in the Philippines?
Normally when people come here to the Philippines, some of them have companies. So one thing you have to realize about the OPC is you cannot really start an OPC with another company, right? So with an OPC, you can't do a corporation and then put it on the OPC. You can only do it with a trust, a person, or an estate. So those are the only things you can't do a corporation. If you want your corporation from your country to invest here in the Philippines, I would suggest to do a regular corporation. Or there's also this thing called regional headquarters. So there's RHQ and ROHQ. So regional headquarters means that your business in your country just has like a headquarters here in the Philippines. So if that generates income, then it's a regional headquarters. The other one is regional operating headquarters. We call it ROHQ. It's when foreigners come here and just use the labor force of the Philippines. They're not really generating income here in the Philippines.
Right.
Yeah.
So if people are watching this video, they're not really sure what they want to do. Can they get in touch, with your company and get, kind of talk it out? You guys charge $1 million for consulting fees. How does that work?
No. So the good thing with us is consultation is free.
Okay.
It's 100% free. So you can email us, you can schedule a call with my staff, and we will let you know what is the best route for you, whether it's a OPC, a corporation, or a headquarters. So that all depends on your business setup, because every business is like unique, right? There's different sorts of setups. So I think an assessment from an agency or a lawyer would be a lot better, so you can, save on investment capital and also the process of like doing it, So one of the thing is we can also estimate what are the fees that are entailed in setting up like corporations or OPCs, or basically business registration here in the Philippines.
Good stuff. Well, Heidi, always great to have you on the channel. Thank you for coming along and sharing more about the OPC.
Thank you for having me. Always happy to be here. Always have fun when I'm here.
Good stuff. Well, guys, I hope you found this informative. If you have questions, make sure and reach out to Heidi and her company. I've always got the best feedback about how they work with others, and I'm sure that they'll be happy to help you as well. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch the channel, and take care.
Bye.